9mm versus 38 special at long range. I want to see what these will do at 50 yards. See which one's a little bit better platform for shooting at that distance. Now I know this gun right here has a little bit less bullet travel than this gun, but when we talk about respective guns and respective calibers, when you talk about something like a 38 special or 357 Magnum revolver, generally what you have is 6-inch barrels, 2-inch barrels, and in the middle 4-inch barrels. When we talk about something like a 9mm pistol, what we generally have is 3-inch barrels, 5-inch barrels, and 4-inch barrels. So the middle ground of the 9mm bullet barrel length is 4-inch. Same with the revolver. And, you know, this was a service size weapon for ever and a day. The 4-inch, either 357 or 38 special, so I think it's a fair comparison. And a 4-inch 9mm is oftentimes a service weapon nowadays. So how would they compare if you had to take a shot at 50 yards? Now the thing about semi-automatic pistols, it's one of those things where everything about it generally is in a smaller area where not as much changes. Your cartridge power, generally, within a small window of size. Your trigger pull, generally, the same thing. The revolver, on the other hand, is one of those weapons where it's certain way, this way, but then you always have the what ifs, or howevers, with the revolver. And one of those howevers is single action. We have single action capabilities with most of the 4-inch revolvers. You also have the changes in power of the cartridge. You can have a very light loaded 38 special, you can have a very warm loaded 38 special. Generally they're less powerful than the 9mm, but the however is you can get a cartridge that's more powerful than a 9mm. And let's just see, 50 yards, what will they do? So let's get started. And here is my target, and just for reference, that guy, top of his head stands about 6'3". So let's go back and see how I can do at 50 yards. Alright, we're back 50 yards. We're going to fire 12 rounds from each weapon. Not going to need a reload with the 9mm, but I will with the 38 special. And the rounds I'm using, this is Winchester service grade ammo. 115 grain, I'm getting about 1190 feet per second. My 38 special loads I'm going to use are 125 grain full metal jackets. And those are traveling anywhere between 950 and 1000 feet per second. So let's see what we get. 9mm, I'm just going to aim kind of high body, hopefully to get some impacts, a little bit lower, maybe right on. So we'll see. Alright, let's go see how I did. Alright, here's the target. Looks like we have about 7 on the body, 1 on the neck, 3 on the white on the paper, and 1 complete miss. Now I was aiming for roughly about here. So we got a little bit of inconsistency with accuracy at that distance with that pistol, and that's sometimes to be expected, not being a fixed barrel. Let's go back with the 38 special and try to do the same thing. Alright, now I'm back 50 yards, 38 special 4-inch. Now what I'm going to do here is shoot single action because I do have that capability. And if you're going to shoot at that distance, you're probably going to be justified in shooting that distance to begin with if you're attempting to make that type of a shot, such as on a mass shooter type situation. I'm going to cock the hammer. We'll try to make these shots count. So, see how this does. I'll aim for the same area. See how we did. It looks like I got the same amount of hits, but these points of impact are completely different. I did hit some in the area, but most of these shots are high. Now we did get some headshots. The actual grouping is a little bit tighter with that gun, but look at how high it is. So we were not dropping at that distance. I mean, actually we probably were. However, just the way that they're slung out of that barrel is completely different. Let's go back. Let's just leave up this target. Let's try to repeat this whole process again. And this time I'm just going to go for dead center here. We'll do the 9mm, and then we'll do the 38 special and see if there's a difference. All right, here we go. 9mm, right for the center body. Take a look. It looks like pretty much the same consistency I had before. You know, roughly the same amount of hits, and they're a little bit scattered. Most of them are right on that body. However, you know, they're a little bit low. So I would say overall that's really, really good. At 50 yards, you can just pretty much aim center mass, and you're going to hit a little bit low. Now with the revolver, we saw a little bit of something different going on. So let's put up a new target. We'll do the same thing, shooting center mass with that 38 special revolver, and see how that fares. All right, here we are again, 38 special. We'll see how that does. Keep in mind, every time I go back and forth, I've walked 200 yards. Between putting up a new target and everything, so I'm a little bit less steady than I would be, but I think that's a good thing, because if you had to do something like this in a real world situation, I can't imagine you being super calm. Go take a look. Alright, I do see all 12 on paper. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots that I would say are probably sufficient. And then we get a couple here, and then the rest are off the paper kind of drifting up. So, that's the best that I can do at that range. As far as walking back and having a little bit of windedness going on, free-handed. So, we definitely see with that 38, and that is a 38 plus P, that the 125 grains definitely drift up quite a bit at that range. And that makes sense. Ballistically speaking, what happens when you shoot a cartridge is, depending on the speed of the cartridge, it'll reach out a further distance before it hits the top of its ballistic arc. Every time you fire a cartridge, no matter what it is, it will kind of raise up like a frisbee and then start to raise down. So if you took something such as a 9mm, which has significantly more velocity, what's going to happen is, at 50 yards, it's still kind of moving straight. And then when we get out to maybe 75 yards-ish, you know, you start to get that arc up, and then it'll start to come back down. And something like a 357 Magnum, I believe that does that at a little bit greater range, maybe something like it starts to go up at 75 and come down, point of impact maybe about 125 yards. .38 Special, what we normally see is up to about 25 yards. We'll get that straight shot, and then after 25 yards we start to get a significant arc up, and then probably at about 75 yards we would be back on point of impact, and then we would see significant dropping at 100 yards. So with your higher velocity cartridges, you're definitely going to have more point of impact at 50 yards. With your slower cartridges, you're going to get that raise up effect. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now overall grouping, I would say the .38 Special won this one. However, just the simplicity of aiming directly at mid-body with your average 9mm cartridge, and it had sufficient accuracy to get the job done. I would say the 9mm is just as effective. It's hard to call this one, but that's my results. Comment what you think, share and like, and as always, thanks for watching.